What's up, folks? On this week's podcast, we're going to be deep diving into some health activities that you might have not thought about before. As you guys all know, without your health, you don't have anything. The guy who knew he was going to die very soon because he had some terminal illness just has one dream, and that's to live another
Mm,
day. But some young person, or maybe even us, we have hundreds of dreams. Health is one of those things that once you got it, once you lost it.
yeah, no,
So
I'd say that, yeah, health is your greatest wealth, right? Picture health as your table, right? And then on top of that table, you have everything else from finances to relationships to all these other domains. You can take away a relationship, it'll suck, but you'll still be okay with a lot of other things on the table. You can take away finances, but if you still have family and other things, you'll be okay. But if you take away that table, health, then everything falls to the floor. That's how I like to think about health. It
right.
really is the greatest wealth.
Some of the activities that we're talking about today, it
Yeah.
improves mood, reduces stress, enhances neuroplasticity. I get this when I usually come home and work out, and I notice I just think a lot more clear and more creatively. And then, of course, if anything, just for protects against cognitive
Mhm.
decline over the long term. Promotes better sleep because you get yourself tired out. But let's get into some of these. You do a lot of like cycling, biking, the Ironman stuff. You play around with a lot of these high intensity training intervals. Maybe walk us through some of these that, and how do you implement them? And maybe people can try it out just to give people something different. I think a lot of people understand the benefits of working out and they already do, but I think we got to keep changing it up, right? Add new things to the toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to be active and also to change things up because we'll get bored of routine. Bit of background about me, I do a lot of endurance activities. My background is in distance running, but over the past year and a half, I've broadened my horizons and now I'm doing more swimming, biking, triathlons, getting back into racket sports, hiking with the family, skiing in the wintertime. That's downhill and cross-country skiing, scuba diving, like you name it. So I'm much more multi-sport now. But going back to what you were asking about, like some of these more intensive exercises, I think probably a lot of our listeners have heard of HIIT or high intensity interval training. And there's a lot of subcategories to this because people are wondering what exactly is HIIT. It says high intensity, so it must seem very short and intense, right? A lot of benefits to HIIT and run through all the different types of it. But in a nutshell, there's a lot of neurological benefits to this kind of exercise. Neurologically, it's really good at engaging all parts of your brain. Research has shown it's very beneficial to your prefrontal cortex that's responsible for things like executive functioning, like complex planning procedures. Besides boosting your endurance and fitness, it's boosts your attention and supports your entire body's stress response systems. Right? So some subcategories of high intensity interval training at the high end here, this is very intense. This is called your anaerobic threshold. Think of this like your 100 or 200-meter sprint. You're pretty much going all out. This is working on your body's ability to handle that lactate accumulation.
Is there a certain heart rate on this? I remember there was the old rule of the 220 minus your age. Does that still apply?
I think ballpark you can use it, but it really depends because everyone's maximum heart rate is a bit different. Generally, when I'm working with my coach and my team, we do not go by heart rate. There is variability among people. It's something you can measure, but you got to measure you got to measure out what your maximum heart rate is. That usually entails doing some sort of all-out effort to figure out what your heart rate maxes out at. Other types of training that I frequently do is called tempo training. Right? This is defined as a steady, moderately hard effort that is usually just below the lactate threshold. This is what you would consider like speed endurance, right? And this is again working your body's ability to improve the lactate clearance. So an example of tempo training, if we're talking about running, like a very simple basic workout could be just simple 20-minute run at an effort that you think you could keep up for 1 hour max. So your maximum effort over 1 hour, if someone told you to run 1 hour, do that for 20 minutes. That's a solid basic workout. You could also break it up. You could structure this in different ways. You can do two 15-minute segments with a short break in between. This is a good, effective way if you're limited on time and you want to boost your endurance. Usually I'll do at least one of these a week. So it builds a different type of strength than just running like a really long time or jogging for a really long time at conversational pace.
This kind of reminds me of sometimes CrossFit workouts somehow fit within this construct, but all of us are totally unaware of what's going on, and maybe the programmer is doing something similar. But yeah, I guess for us that'd be like a 5-10 minute effort, get 1 or 2 minutes to rest. Your heart rate comes back down into maybe not 100, comes under 100, and you get back at it again. You repeat it for a few times. That kind of I just cringe when I hear running for an hour. I don't know if I can even do 15 minutes. But
yeah, you should never do that kind of effort in training. Like you save that effort for race day.
Yeah. In a way, I think as we had the last podcast with the hedgehog and the fox, you and I are different from a physical fit. What we like to do physically is very different. You're doing things a lot longer. I'm a lot more short. So at least just throw that out there to give people a little bit of a range, depending what they are.
So after tempo training, you got sprints. These are usually short bursts of maximal effort, 20 to 30 seconds. That helps to develop speed, power, and even some VO2 max. Sprints are useful. It builds fast twitch muscles. It builds power in a way that you don't build if you're running for slower, longer distances. Even if your thing is running longer distances, it's helpful to incorporate at least a little bit of speed training because your muscles are stronger, they're faster. When you're running at those longer, slower paces, it makes it easier to keep up a certain pace if your muscles are baseline stronger.
In a way, it's if you bench 135 10 times, maybe try to go up to 225 just one or twice, just to increase that max high-end capacity. It's the same thought.
Yeah, yes, yeah, exactly. I think that's a very similar concept. Something like that should be done sparingly, but it's important to do just once in a while, right? Because it helps you overall.
My question there is for 20 to 30 second sprints, right? I think anybody can do that, but depends on how much your capacity is or how good in your shape. It might be 2 or 3 sets or a lot more sets, right?
So this is where getting some guidance is helpful because if you're new to this, you definitely don't want to overdo it, especially for those of us who are a little older. This is a very good way to easily injure yourself, right? Especially if you're not warmed up, especially if you are overestimating your capabilities. It's very sexy to sprint sometimes. It's an easy way to tear your Achilles or pull a hamstring.
Whatever you do, make sure you wear tights doing it so you look like a seal running as fast as you can.
Exactly.
I'm not a runner, but I've done sprints before, maybe a few times a year. I think I could probably sustain 20, 30-second sprints maybe 4 to 6 times. After that, the quality severely drops off. And I've always been taught that as soon as that top line effort quality drops off by 10-20%, that's it, you're done.
That's time to go do something else, cool down or switch to a different modality, or else you're really risking injury, and then it becomes counterproductive. Another common type of training that I'll recommend to people I coach it's called Fartleks, right? So I think it's a Swedish word that literally translates to speed play. This type of training involves varying your paces and works both your aerobic and it can also work your anaerobic systems, right? So it builds speed and endurance. So a simple workout that I might recommend to someone who's just starting out is called like a surroundings fartlek, right? So I recommend, hey, just go out for a run, right? And pick a landmark in the distance, right? So pick a tree, and so just run fast to that. Pick another landmark in the distance, jog, recover to that. Once you're there, pick another landmark in the distance, run fast to that. And then you just repeat this. So it keeps it super flexible and don't have to run at any certain pace. Just go at whatever you feel like it, and keeps it fun, keeps it low stress. And you can do this anywhere, right? The more interesting things you have in your neighborhood, the better. But anyone can do this. And it's like a really easy way to get in some speed training with endurance without necessarily having to run 20 times around a boring track.
Yeah, but you're not necessarily sprinting on this, right?
You're not going all out because you're incorporating these into a longer run. Could be something between 5K and 10K effort, I would say. So you definitely don't want to be going all out on these.
Yeah. This is where it can be a little social too. If you do
Mhm.
this with your spouse or buddy, I would probably run 400 meters and then take 200 meters walking, then do
Yeah,
it
yeah.
again. But I had a buddy in high school. He was so out of shape. We had to do this campus run that took 20 something minutes. He implemented the lazy man Fartlek routine where he would run for a minute and rest for 2 minutes and just repeat this because he could not handle it. But hey, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of the run walk method. And I think there's actually a formalized name. It's called the Galloway method, like a very common way that people new to the running world would get into it. So run walk intervals, right? And as you get fitter, you can change up those intervals so that you're doing more running, less walking. That's actually a pretty effective way to get into running. And I know some people that do this throughout an entire marathon, and their times are actually pretty respectable.
I'd probably like to do a podcast in the future on what to do during like when you're travel and you don't have equipment. But
Mm,
something we do in CrossFit that's similar to this is it'll be like every minute or every 2 minute you have
mm,
to do 4 burpees or 5 burpees or
mm,
10 push-ups at the
mm.
top of every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that can be incorporated with your cardio, especially if you don't have equipment. This is good for the guys who like the biceps and triceps. So you get a little bit of effort in there
Yeah.
and maybe do a certain distance or time of running,
Mm.
8 meters or 4 minutes, and you do 20 or 30 push-ups, or next time you do 30 sit-ups. You're taking the tension off those muscles in a way, moving it around.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds intense, but also really beneficial.
You want
Yeah.
something intense? Think there's a workout called Fight Gone Bad, which is very popular with MMA athletes because
Mhm.
it's in 3 minute rounds. In those 3 minute rounds, you change your exercise, I think, 4 times. So one time you're using this ball, then you're doing some push-ups. I forget what the exercises are,
Mm.
but you're going all out like a Tabata
Yeah.
and you're rotating. And then at the end of the 3 minutes, so you're never really muscle exhaustion in one exercise. It keeps getting fresh. But at the 3 minute, then you get a nice rest. I think it's like a 1 or 2 minute rest. And it's supposed to mimic an MMA fight.
Yeah.
A little bit different, right? Similar concepts of playing around with it.
I'm noticing there's overlap in some of the principles. Having a little bit of recovery, but not a very long recovery, trains your body to get rid of the lactate, right? To get rid of those waste byproducts quicker. I think that's one of the goals of structured regimens, right?
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just the CrossFit way, which is varied and sometimes for punishment. Some workouts will be like the Murph workout where you do
Yeah.
100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats. You're supposed to partition it in such a
Mm.
way where normally I'll do 5, 10, 15,
Yeah.
5, 10, 15. So
Yeah.
everything is fresh. In certain workouts, it's the opposite. You cannot move on to the next thing until you finish.
You finish, yeah.
Like you've hit 100 pull-ups, right? 50 pull-ups. That's a big number. And you're going to go so slow, but you have to get past that. Don't know what that does, but maybe it's just mental torment.
Yeah.
Everything is a little bit different, right?
Oh, interesting. I've heard about those. Can't wait to try that out. It's thinking of things you can do if you're traveling. If you have access to hill repeats, so hill training, if you're into running, very beneficial. In fact, hills are great, I would say, for working on running form because a lot of times I'll get questions on like I improve my running form. Invariably, one of the things I'll say is I can tell you all this stuff, but probably the most practical thing you can do is incorporate hills because when you're running hills, your posture is going to naturally be in such a way that it's improved and you're going to be activating your glutes, right? Activating other key muscles that, and a lot of us who spend time sitting at our desks tend to get dormant over time. And so hill repeats are just fantastic in addition to burning your lungs.
I got a question for you. I'm a horrible runner, so I'm always looking for
Mm.
the most efficient way to do it with the least amount of
Ah,
effort. Have you heard
yeah,
of this pose method of running?
I have.
I guess like for folks who aren't on the YouTube channel, essentially the concept is like you're slightly leaning forward
Yeah.
and you're falling and you got to pick up your feet quickly. You're not really pushing off the ground. You're just falling forward. Is this legit?
It is. There's
It
pose
looks,
running.
but I'll tell you.
There's definitely a lot of good to this. There's other similar methods. There's something called HIIT, very similar to the pose method. But yeah, even outside of these methods, a lot of running coaches will teach to have that slight forward lean, and they'll even say that running is basically a controlled fall. You should always feel like you're falling forward. It's just that your feet are keeping you going. Otherwise, you'd fall. So
I'm gonna put some more effort into this pose running.
a lot of times when you have a slight forward lean, it'll actually prevent overstriding. You're more likely to have your feet land under your hips, which is like the most efficient and the most efficient, and also it'll prevent running injuries if your feet are landing right under your hips. If you watch the elites in slow motion, you'll notice they have this like wonderful posture, and like they have this slight forward lean when they're running, right? Their shoulders are back, their elbows are back, right? So when you do that, that also helps because if more weight is shifted behind you, that'll make your body naturally lean forward. I'm glad you brought this up. There is a lot of technique and refinement needed for running. Even though it's something most people can do, like one foot in front of the other, there is a lot of technique to it.
And they're like, you don't want to do the heel striking, like how this person's demonstrating here.
Yeah, that's like an
That's
extreme example. And then you can also see that in this example, her heel is landing in front of her body, so away from her hips, right? So over time, that is going to give a lot of stress to the ankle and the knee, right? And this is why you see a lot of running injuries.
most of my weight is on my toes a little bit.
That's how this method teaches it. Other schools of thought will point to elite runners and say, yes, ideally everyone runs on their balls or on the midfoot, but if you look at even the best runners in the world, if you look at them through a marathon, by the second half, almost all of them have some sort of heel strikes. A little bit of heel strike is okay, but in general, you probably don't want to be heel striking that lady that just ran through the screen earlier.
Yeah. Then she complains that her knees hurt. We wonder why.
Exactly. This is why a lot of people say, yes, running is bad for the knees. A lot of it depends on technique.
Just like me and whole life insurance, it depends on how you do it, right?
Yeah, this is a post method. It's good for folks wanting to learn proper running technique. Yeah. Even though running seems simple, one foot in front of the other, technique is a big part of it.
Yeah.
It can make a big difference. Yeah.
It looks like maybe they're exaggerating this, but it looks like they're picking the back of their feet, kicking their butt more than a normal person would. Is that, or am I just observing? It just seems like it's a little exaggerated to me.
You're talking about the example of what you should be doing? I know in the pose method, they try to break it down into phases. And I think one of them is like the pull phase, if I recall correctly. And so that's why it might look a little unnatural.
And then they say, you can't do it. Your hamstrings aren't strong enough. And I'm like, all right, okay, okay. I think we went through a few ways to play around with things.
Yeah.
The purpose of today's podcast is to give people ideas of jazzing up the workout routine a little bit. I just had a workout earlier this week that I thought was super fun. There was no weight on the bar. It was just a 45-pound bar. And it was only for 7 minutes. And it was an all-out sprint. And I just like those. I really like those. I don't know why, but that makes it fun. Maybe you like those 2-hour run similarly, but
2-hour runs are much better with company, right? It's much better if you throw in some tempo work or some speed work or incorporating like a fartlek into it, right? Like we were talking about.
Yeah, with a recovery beer at the end, a Michelob Ultra.
Oh yeah, best recovery drink. Yeah, but it sounds like you have a nice varied workout routine, and
I like it because I'm a bit of a type A personality and I like to torture myself. I think some people like that. Not everybody is like that. What I do is it constantly changes. It's not the same thing. Most people have it on the app so they know what the workout is going to be that day and they like to do it. I don't have the time to get the app or sign in. I never know, but I actually like that. I have no idea what it is. So I can't really cherry pick the day. I come in and that's what it is and I do it. And for 1 hour out of the day, I don't have to think about anything.
It's really helpful, especially for a lot of type A individuals, high achievers. You could look up the workout routine yourself. This is why I like working with a coach myself. I could easily make my own workouts. I am a certified running coach, or I could pull up a workout from running books that I have. I make enough decisions throughout the day. I work hard. I just want someone to tell me what to do. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that there's something really nice about that. I just want that time to like not have to make a decision, just someone tell me what to do.
And if you can incorporate the community and other people doing
Yeah.
it, accountability. But I think that's a constant theme for people living the rich life. After you get to a certain point, it's more about the people around you. And if you can align it with something healthy as opposed to drinking a six pack of
Yeah.
beers, even better.
Yeah, I agree. These days, I think the biggest joy I get out of working out is the community aspect. It's like the camaraderie, helping people achieve their goals. Like they help me back, and perhaps like something that I'm not as strong as. Right? So these days, I'm part of a swim club. I'm a weak swimmer because I only started recently, but it's been nice to have people just be so open and willing to show me the ropes. In return, I can help them out with things that I'm relatively stronger in, like, such as running. And then outside of endurance sports, I'm getting into other things too. I like to play tennis, do any sort of racket sports, winter sports. It's just nice to mix it up. And if you can do it with people and make friends along the way, that's a pretty good life, if you ask me.
That's why pickleball is popular these days. Just to wrap things up, a few others that we didn't mention that neither of us do is like dance. I've done it before.
Yeah.
That's that for some people, a good friend of mine, that's been a big thing. And then just stretching. I think we're seeing a lot of these stretch labs pop up, these franchises specifically because of this. But whatever it is, what I guess, doctor, what's your prescription for everybody? The minimum they should be at least trying to achieve.
Yeah, if it were me, I do something every day, and I recommend. I know this is more than the official recommendations of 30 minutes of exercise a few times a week. I think everyone should do something every day, even if it's just a little bit. Make physical activity part of your routine. It should be fun, bring joy to your life, and enhance it. Go in with the mindset that this is not something you have to do, but something you get to do. If you get to do it, you're in a great place. So just go in there with a feeling of gratitude and like how cool is it that there's all these different sports and activities that you can do? And while you're doing it, it's helping out your brain, just so beneficial to your health in a myriad of ways.
Right. With that, thanks everybody for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time, guys.